welcome back to Most Self-Improved. We are your co-hosts, Erin Jensen, and
Bobna Chillicori.
That's the last I let her talk for like 20 minutes. But so we are we are starting a brand new book today. The potential is so exciting. It's called Build the Life You Want by Arthur C. Brooks and the one and only Oprah needs no last name Winfrey if you need it. So hopefully that makes you want to buy a book and you want to buy a book and you want to buy a book and read along. And Arthur, he teaches about happiness at Harvard, and he also writes a column for The Atlantic titled How to Build a Life, which Bobna reads. And I wish I knew if he liked bread like Oprah, but I don't. But this episode covers part 1 of the book, Managing Your Emotions, which if you've been following along, you know that I need help with. And coincidentally, it feels like this is, I don't know, fate that you would have seen him, but Bobna just heard Arthur speak this week. So tell us all about it. How was it? What did he say? Does he listen to our show?
It was good. So I saw him at the Atlantic Festival, and he just writes about happiness, which such a cool job,
right?
To have. Yeah, this is like all he thinks about and writes about, and teaches a class on basically how to be happy to Harvard students. And he was at this conference with Cheryl Strayed. So he kind of interviewed her, and they talked about happiness and also unhappiness and why you need unhappiness to have happiness, which feels really annoying, but also true, which we'll get into it.
Shall we
Let's
into
get into it? Yes.
Okay. And so while I was reading this, it was like a roller coaster of emotion. Because first, I was like, I'm really identifying with some of the things. And then secondly, I was like, what has happened? So he starts by writing, this is for people who, quote, have a good life on paper, but always find yourself struggling. You are the kind of person I relate to best. We're kindred spirits. As you know from the hyperventilation, you're so kind to experience this week because I was having a bad time and I called you and you didn't answer. And I was like, how long is it going to take her to return a phone call if sometimes her text messages, there's a delay. So I was like waiting, expecting a telegram, something from the Pony Express, a singing lobstergram, but you so quickly called back and you were so kind and I could not breathe. I could not breathe on the phone. But there's no reason that I should have been that upset, except for obviously my period was coming, but there was no reason.
I knew the period was involved.
You could tell. You should definitely keep track of my cycle. No, I have my health. I have my nieces who I'm obsessed with. I have family. I have a roof over my head. I have all of the things that you should be thankful for. But often I find myself unhappy. And so I appreciate Arthur speaking to me. It seems that he is speaking to me. And then so also he opens the book writing about his mother-in-law who had an actually hard life and she was abandoned by her husband and she had to raise 3 kids alone. And she understandably was upset. And then she decided to make this shift, realizing she can't wait for the outside world to change to be happy, and also taking accountability for like the influence you have on, your quality of life. So Arthur, the author, says, which sounds like a PBS show, says she switched from wishing others were different to working on the one person she could control herself. She felt negative emotions just like anyone else, but she set about making more conscious choices about how to react to them. The decisions she made, not her primal feelings, led her to try to transform less productive emotions into positive ones, such as gratitude, hope, compassion, and humor, which he goes on to later elaborate about in this book. He says she also worked to focus more on the world around her and less on her own problems. She constructed a much better life on the 4 pillars: family, friendships, work, and faith. And another point of Arthur's that hit for me, quote, if we're angry or sad or lonely, we need people to treat us better. We need our finances to improve. We need our luck to change. Until then, we wait unhappily and can only distract ourselves from the comfort, which I do. I'm like, if I had a man, if we had cute babies, if they were children models, if I won the lottery, like all these things. When like, hey, what if you never get those? And then like, what, my life is just a collection of sad and happy days?
Yeah, this was...
You're like, I think from the hyperventilating, that's probably the path that we're that's what we're on.
No, that was just a moment. It was a moment in time. It's kind of like a real kick in the ass where he's basically like, stop blaming everything. Like, it's not going to help if you blame everything around you. He says it nicer than that, right? But he's like...
Does he? I don't know.
You need to just focus on what you're doing
Yes.
and how you can like take control of your life.
I'm curious, you're close to getting the house. You have the man. We're about to see you in your 4-digit wedding outfit. How happy are you in your life right now? And then if you do have any sources of unhappiness or like moments where you feel unhappy, what's the cause of that?
I would say I am pretty happy. I think when Arthur talks about unhappiness is not the enemy, it's like part of life. I think I'm happy partially because there were many points of unhappiness
Yeah.
that I had to learn from and grow from. I'm also very aware that this is really temporary, which is
Mm.
a really stressful thought. So sometimes I'll literally wake up being like, oh, okay, I'm still happy. Like, how many days left do I have? Which is a really grim way to live. But I think all of self-improvement hammers home everything is temporary. And so you have to just be thankful
Hate
for
it.
all of it. Yeah.
Hate
It's
it.
so irritating.
The Rock is like, the rent is due every day, but it's like the repetitive things that I hate. I'm like, you have to feed yourself every day. You have to go to the gym every day. Like, can we not just do something like check it off the list? We did
Exactly.
it.
No,
Laundry, like I need it to be done. I need it to be done. Yeah, everything to
no,
stay
you
the
just have to
same.
keep going.
We haven't even hit chapter 1 yet. Like that was all foreplay. So we should get into chapter 1, which it goes a little bit sideways for me because it was like flipping upside down everything that I thought that I've known about happiness. So I have not seen The Matrix, but I know there's a scene where like you take a pill and one is reality and whatever. So we have taken the pill. Also have not seen Barbie, but I think there's a similar like Birkenstocker heel moment. So chapter 1 is called Happiness is Not the Goal and Unhappiness is Not the Enemy, which of course was like unhappiness is the enemy. Throw this electronic book away, which is just my laptop. What is happening? But he says you can't be happy consistently, which I was like, no, that is the goal. I hate being unhappy. Let's be happy. But he writes, happiness is not a destination. Happiness is a direction.
Mhm.
And he says happiness not being consistent is actually good news because then you can feel less bad about all of the times that you aren't happy and you can stop searching for it.
I agree with the point. Happiness is a direction. And they talked about this at
Yes.
the conference too. Happiness is a pilgrimage. You can't ever reach it. Just like you have to like keep feeding yourself every day, keep doing the laundry.
Arthur writes that happiness can be defined as a combination of enjoyment, satisfaction, and purpose, which he defines enjoyment as takes an urge for pleasure and adds two important things. Communion and consciousness. Arthur defines satisfaction as that thrill from accomplishing a goal you've worked for. It's how you feel when you do something difficult, maybe even painful, that meets your life purpose as you see it. He says, without purpose, which he notes as the most important of the three, quote, we are utterly lost because we can't deal with life's inevitable puzzles and dilemmas. When we do have a sense of meaning and purpose, we can face life with hope and inner peace. As you mentioned, it's not about eliminating all of the suffering. He says we must instead look for the why of life to make pain an opportunity for growth, or in our case, a joke, which that's what we use it for. Bottom line for him, without unhappiness, you wouldn't survive, learn, or come up with good ideas. Even if you could get rid of your unhappiness, it would be a huge mistake. The secret to the best life is to accept your unhappiness so you can learn and grow and manage the feelings that result. So let's see. I don't know. Should we get into the personality thing, or should I mention why I use the purpose, or maybe that's later? I don't know. Should I mention the purpose? So, but the point of this to say, as in the definitions, all of them have a level of suffering. And as you mentioned before, how would you know happiness if you didn't know unhappiness?
Yeah.
So personality test.
Love a good personality test.
Don't you just want to know more about yourself, or is that just my narcissism? Don't you?
No, who doesn't like personality test? I'll take every single one, even the like BuzzFeed. What kind of dessert are you?
I know. And then I'm like, I guess. Am I? I don't know. Yeah. Okay, perfect. Okay, so for this test, you rate how often you experience certain emotions, like being inspired or jittery. You obviously took this test after all the BuzzFeeds and finding out you were the green Jello mold from Thanksgiving. But
gross. Is that what you would peg me as? It's very offensive.
No. What would you would be some sort of like sweet, fresh out of the oven hot muffin. Like, like the best kind. Maybe like, ooh, like chocolate chip pumpkin with like a little sliced almonds on top. Doesn't that seem nice? Like texture and flavor. Does that seem nice?
I don't know. I don't like almonds. I might.
Walnuts?
I mean like a lava cake.
Ooh,
Like
lava.
a little surprise inside.
Little surprise. Gooey,
Yeah,
chocolatey. All right. All right. Bob's is lava. This is great.
I am.
Okay. So did you take after that quiz? Did you do your job as a podcast host for which you are
I
not
did.
paid?
I did take the test. I'm always upset with my result. So based on like how much positive affect versus negative affect you have, you're one of 4 types. Mad scientist, which feels like lots of negative emotions, but also lots of positive emotions. The judge, which is not as many emotions from either side. So like cool and calm.
That's what
He
I
says,
peg you for. That's what I
I
pegged
know.
you for. And
I
Oprah. I bet Oprah is a judge.
She is. Oprah is a judge. I
There
know
we
that
go.
for a fact. And then the cheerleader is not dwelling on the negative emotions, but very positive all the time. And then the poet, the Taylor Swift, is kind of
Right.
dwelling on the negative emotions and not as positive.
Look what you
So
made me do.
they're the 4 types. And he says it's equally spread in the population. And
Mhm.
most people want to be the cheerleader,
Uh-huh.
but it's okay to be the other types because we need all of these types in society. I got poet, which I was very like, oh, I got the worst one. I definitely went to that place.
Why do you think it's the worst one? Because it's higher on
Because it's like
negativity?
you're sad. Yeah, you're like always noticing the negative
I don't
stuff.
feel like that's but okay, so you do the quiz and then there's an average that he gives. So were you just like a slightly above average for negative? How dire is your poet diagnosis?
I was like 7 points above the
Oh, that
average.
is this is very surprising to me. I'm gonna need you to retake the
There's
test
a
in real
lot
time.
happening up here that
Maybe
doesn't
that's what it was.
come out.
Was it your period?
Not yet, but basically a poet has trouble enjoying good things and always knows when there's a threat
Okay,
lurking.
so then it feels like you because you were saying, "I wake up every day and I'm like, how much happiness is left in this jar? How
Yes,
much is
no,
left?" Okay, so I see it
absolutely.
a little. Okay, fine.
Yeah, no, there is definitely a little bit of that. And then part of it is like, okay, can I get something? Can I be Taylor Swift? Like they're
Yeah,
supposed to be creative,
yeah.
romantic, like a
You
little bit
are
melancholy.
creative.
What about you?
I'm the mad scientist, which I resent, but slightly. It's just like a couple
Okay.
of points, or else I just would have been average, which I feel like I don't know if I like that name
Okay.
either. But so Arthur writes, you will tend to react very strongly, good and bad, to things in your life, which you, as my
I
friend,
see
has
that.
experienced.
I have seen that. But I've seen the good too. It's like
It's
so
true.
which
Which
is like
I'm
really nice.
so this might make you the life of the party, but it, God bless you,
Mhm.
it can exhaust our loved ones and coworkers. That's you. You need to know this and work to manage your strong emotions and reactions. And obviously, when I took that test and got that score, as someone with strong feelings, I was very offended by those results.
I would be offended by that too.
Well, yeah, and because I overreact to everything, so it felt like very bad news. But I have always said that about myself. Like happy moments mean more to me, and sad moments are harder for me. But I just always thought that meant that I was like an overly sensitive person. But maybe mad scientists are very sensitive. So, chapter 2, the power of metacognition. Arthur introduces people who have every reason not to be happy, but are, like Holocaust survivor Viktor Frankl, who said, everything can be taken from a man but one thing, the last of the human freedoms, to choose one's attitude in any given set of circumstances, to choose one's way. Metacognition is, quote, the act of experiencing your emotions consciously, separating them from your behavior, and then refusing to be controlled by them. So he wants you to observe the feelings that are happening, and then we accept them and then journal them so you're completely conscious, which we know from Bold Move then switches to your logical brain, which helps you be less emotional. As a mad scientist, Arthur says, choose reactions not based on your negative emotions, but rather based on the outcomes you prefer in your life. In addition to journaling, Arthur says it's beneficial to look for meaning and learning in the hard parts of life. Or as
Yeah.
Nora Ephron would say, everything is copy. So anything else from chapter 2?
I thought this was really interesting. Arthur has shared that for his students at Harvard, he assigns them an assignment called the pain journal. Sounds real bad. So they're
Sounds like
basically
something we'd skip. Yes.
they're basically writing down everything that is causing them pain, right? And most of them, he said their average age is like 28. And so many things are happening to you when you're 28. Breakups, don't know what you're going to do with your life, trying to figure everything out. Who am I going to be?
For some
As an
men,
adult.
dramatic hair thinning, I would say. Probably
Exactly.
around that
Which
age.
can be very stressful, I think, if you're a man.
Sure.
And so in the pain journal, there's 3 lines. You like write down what's causing you pain. And then he tells them to come back in a month to that entry and write down like one thing they've learned from that, how it's affecting them. And then they come back 6 months later. But at this point, they're not even in the class. So who knows if they're doing it. But they come back 6 months later and say, like, what did you learn and how did you grow from this pain? And he said, inevitably, there is always something to write. Even in the worst things, losing a parent, there's still something that you have learned and grown from. Even if you wouldn't have chosen that path, there's still some growing, which I thought was interesting.
That should train your brain, right, to see positive and negative situations. But for me, I was like, okay, well, what do I do with all my crazy emotions between writing them down and that 1 month later? I just sit on them, not allowed to talk about them. I don't understand. What am I doing for 30 days? Like, you people just let it go.
I think what he's saying is, even if that's the case, there's still some learning there.
But what do I do? Is that simple fact enough? I should just be like, shh, emotions, shh.
Maybe you have to go walk on the Pacific Crest Trail. I think you have to do like some kind of long pilgrimage with a backpack.
This is amazing. So chapter 3, choose a better emotion. Spoiler alert, the emotion is gratitude. Gratitude, Arthur says, can replace negative emotions and have a lot of benefits, including making us more resilient, stimulating the brain's reward circuit, strengthening romantic relationships, if you have any, friendships, if you have any, family bonds, and lower blood pressure, and result in healthier food choices. So many fantastic benefits in these journals that we're writing. The only place that we're expressing emotion for months at a time. He says that we should write down memories we appreciate, and then prayer is also a great way to express our thanks. Do you have a gratitude practice?
I do. I'm not like super consistent with it, but the times when I was most sad is when I would do it the most, because it helped me. When I was really having a hard time, I would make myself write down 30 things. I would like sit there until I got them. I remember a couple days where I would be sitting down. I was so upset over something or the other, literally crying, trying to think of like, it was a sad sight, trying to think of something. I think I wrote down, I can't think of anything today. Even though I knew there were things.
The other emotions, were so much stronger.
Too strong.
You couldn't see. Yeah.
Yeah. Even when I look back my gratitude journal, it gives you that kind of warm feeling of like, oh my gosh, like there's so many things in life to be grateful for.
So do you do it like every day?
Yeah, I do it at night. It's weird. I have it in an email draft, which is not like the best way to keep it. No, since 2012.
Look
so
at
it's
you.
been 11 years. Yeah.
Arthur also advises finding reasons to laugh, which I totally do this. If I'm very sad, I will put stand up on. And I mean, you and I both, we met in a comedy class after being dumped. So what brought you to that comedy class?
I was just really sad. And I was like, I need to do something that will distract. I mean,
we were both, the breakup of 2019, that was my worst by far.
That was a bad one, but not my worst. I think I was just sad. And I was like, yeah, I need to find laughter. And I agree. Yeah. I always feel better watching stand up. It is like medicine, right? The best thing. I love it.
As my friend Mickey would say, good news, bad news. Arthur writes, consuming humor, enjoying jokes brings joy and relieves suffering. But Arthur writes, being funny, however, is the one dimension of a sense of humor that does not appear to boost happiness, which is sometimes called the sad clown paradox. That's what I have. I have sad clown paradox. And then he says, a study found that comics, quote, score above population norms on scales measuring some sort of fancy words for inability to feel pleasure. But it makes sense, right? I forget who said it. It's either Howard Stern interviewing Stephen Colbert or something like that. But one of the reasons why they got so into comedy is because they know how horrible being sad feels. And I think for me, I give so much of what I want. So like I tell a lot of jokes because I want people to be happy. And I give my love away really easily because I would like to be loved. So it makes sense, but sucks for me that I'm hilarious. Yeah. Sad as I am hilarious.
But you're bringing joy to so many other people.
In addition to watching sad comics, Arthur suggests we choose hope. And then he explains the difference between what he feels is hope versus optimism. Optimism is the belief that things will turn out all right. Hope makes no such assumption, but is a conviction that one can act to make things better in some way. So, how you can practice hope, he says, imagine a better future in detail what makes it so. Envision yourself taking action. Imagine yourself helping in some plausible way to bring about a better future, albeit at the micro level. And then lastly, he says the most important step is action. Okay, anything else on chapter 3, or shall we move to what would obviously be anyone who enjoys taking a personality test, their least favorite chapter, chapter 4, focus less on yourself.
Yeah, I like this chapter.
I think it's very needed. Arthur points to a study that found, quote, those caring for others actively felt greater purpose in life and sense of control, while others did not. They are the ones who felt less anger and social isolation. Focusing less on yourself and your desires will make you happier. I listened to a Mel Robbins podcast. They were like, oh, if you don't have any friends, you should try to take care of someone in hospice. And it's like, you have that connection. And also you feel so good about doing something for other people. Part of Arthur's an explanation for the study is because how you feel about yourself can change, obviously, day to day. Then your happiness can be inconsistent as well. But then Arthur gets a little too out there for me. A part of focusing less on yourself, he says, don't take selfies, which, like, whatever, fine, even though sometimes my hair looks really fire. But also get rid of like the mirrors in your house, which is so extreme. And I know Oprah looks in the mirror. And I also looked at Arthur on his website, and he's a handsome looking man. I think he's seen a mirror in his day a time or two. So, I mean, that just seems a little extreme.
Yeah, that was a funny suggestion. He has said, yeah, to be happy, you have to make yourself small, which sounds so interesting. And I think he says to seek out awe. That feeling of when you're like in nature or looking at something really beautiful, or even listening to a piece of music where you're like, oh my God, this is making me feel something. You realize how small you are, and that can make you happy, which maybe is a little counterintuitive. But yeah, focusing on yourself all the time is guaranteed to be stressful, because like who's like fully happy with themselves, right? You're always thinking about what needs to be better, how I can change. But no, getting rid of your mirrors is insane.
I like when Arthur brings up how little people are thinking about you. And this is my freeing moment. I'm doing my first podcast, and I was like, what are people going to think? Arthur writes, the prison of others' approval is actually one run by you, maintained by you, and guarded by you. Remind yourself that no one cares. So I just love that, because it's true. You're building this life and not taking chances. And I know you've mentioned this before about wanting to feel more courageous because you think, oh, what are people going to think? But it's like, think about how self-absorbed you are taking your what dessert am I quiz. And it's like, nobody cares. That is so free. Nobody cares. And like, I say this in the best, most encouraging way. I looked at the numbers for our first podcast. It was like 4 people listened, but like, so that's just reiterating how honest we can be without consequence. And also, I'm doing this because it feels good to be talking to you about self-help and sharing experiences and feeling understood and relating and reading something that hopefully is going to improve my life. What about you?
I love that. I think same. I feel like
your man.
Saying, oh, he was like, don't
this
say
is
my
your
name.
First episode. your fiance.
My fiance. He was like, don't talk about me on this. So you can edit his name out. But
we'll bleep it. It'll be great. Or we should give him like a fake name, like Lazarus, or like something very exotic. Yes.
Very biblical.
I am reading the Bible lately.
Doesn't he die? And
I don't know. I haven't gotten to that part. Spoiler alert. I don't know. Oh, but he's raised from the dead, isn't he? I think that's the point. He is
raised from the dead by Jesus. Yeah.
Oh, there we go. There we go.
But he was saying, he was like, no, when you're laughing so much and having a good time whenever you record, it's so nice to hear. And I was like, I am. It's like very much doing this for me. I have always, always, always cared what other people think so much, to the point where it's guided so many decisions that should not have been guided by anyone but myself. This one is definitely still one I'm working on, but to just do things because I enjoy them and to not care about anything else feels like huge progress. Yeah. Which is really nice. Yeah.
Give us a taste of some of the decisions you made because you were influenced by what other people would think.
What field to go into. I was like, okay, this is what's acceptable. This other stuff feels too risky, or like not something I could do, or like even where I live. I don't know. Just like, how will this affect others, or what will people say about that? And so it feels good to just let go of that a little bit, or start learning to let go of that.
So we will think about others, we'll do good for others, and we will say what they think. That's what we will do.
Yeah,
That is chapter
exactly.
4. Anything else from chapter 4?
No, I think that's it.
All right, so that concludes part 1 of Build the Life You Want. Next week, we'll be reading part 2, Building What Matters, and that will conclude our episodes on the book. So read along with us. Tell us all the parts that hit for you in the comment section of our Instagram, Most Self-Improved, all one word. And if you are enjoying the podcast, which, spoiler alert, if you've listened all the way to this point, guess what? You are. So leave us a glowing review, share it with a friend, subscribe, think of someone other than yourself. Okay. All right, Bobs. Any final thoughts? Anything else that you would like to promote about you or Lazarus or whatever you have going on? We'll find a different name.
No, I'm good. Keep your mirror. It's okay to keep your mirror.
Keep your mirror. That's an opportunity for some sort of mirror manufacturer, I think, to tap us.
It is. It is.
Okay. Well, I hope everyone has a fantastic week. Thank you so much for listening.
Thank you. Bye.